This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, the time being 6:30 p.m., I'd like to call the January 12th meeting of the Tilton Planning Board to order. Before we get started, please mute your microphone during the meeting unless you want to speak. Otherwise, background noise will interfere with the meeting. As chair of this meeting, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 220-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we're providing public access to the meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the conference call number found on our website at tiltonnh.org under meeting schedules and agendas for this meeting. Additional public access by video and other electronic means will be available as follows. We're using the GoToMeeting platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate remotely using your smartphone, tablet, or computer at the address found on our website at tiltonnh.org under meeting schedules and agendas. We are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting via telephone conference and by GoToMeeting, and instructions are provided on the Tilton Town website at tiltonnh.org and at the town kiosk. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during any public comment or public hearing. If you're a member of the public listening in and have questions, please write your questions down, and at the end of each agenda item, I will ask if there are any questions from the public before we move on to the next agenda item. Please state your name, address, and then ask your question. We're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please email web@tiltonnh.org, which will be monitored during the meeting. We will adjourn the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, with each member states their presence. Also, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Given the unusual circumstances, we will dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. My name is Jane Alden. There are 2 other adults in the room and 5 dogs. All right, next person. Next person. Hello.
Okay, I'll go next. My name is Joe Jessman. I'm taking the place of Eric Byra. I'm here alone.
Christine.
Frederick Senna. I'm here with 2 people.
Okay, and your name?
Frederick Senna, with 2 people.
Okay. John.
Christine Dixie, person.
Okay. Judy. Judy, we can't hear you.
Judy Tilton, one other person.
Okay.
John Scanlon. I'm just here by myself, citizen, Main Street.
Okay. All right.
Todd Odell. I'm here by myself.
All right. Is that everybody?
Thomas Mead.
Okay.
I'm here by myself at the moment.
attending Tilton resident.
Okay. Any other members of the public? Scott?
Scott Davis, here by myself.
Okay.
Barry Milberg, here by myself.
All right. Leanne?
Can you hear me, Jane?
I can hear you.
Okay, yep, I'm here. I'm by myself.
All right.
And Janice is here, and I'm by myself.
Okay. I believe that's it. Okay, this is a public hearing. We're going to be discussing later on the zoning amendments. But the first order of business is the complete conditional use permit and a lot merger for MB Tractor and Equipment. Does everybody have all the information in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, there are two issues. Leanne, did we get a report from the engineer?
No, we have not. Tonight you're hearing MB Tractor for completion only, and if you want to do the lot merger, you can move ahead with that, but it really is just for completeness tonight, and then it will move to site plan review on the 26th.
Okay, all right. I'll make a motion to bring the application forward. Everybody take a look at it. Are there any questions or comments?
Jane, this is Janice. Was
Is
there a
this-
second on that motion?
Pardon?
Was there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Greg
Frederick
seconded it. I'm sorry
Thank you,
about
Fran.
that.
That's okay.
This is another completely new building, not the one we did before.
No, it's
Correct.
It's the one we did before.
This is a new application, though. This is a new AOT permit. You did this before, Judy? Didn't we do this building
We
previously?
did the building before.
Oh, it's a new application.
Hey, everyone, this is Chris Netto from Novus Group. I was wondering if I could chime in on the application. I can explain exactly what we're applying for if you'd like. That's
All right.
appropriate.
Well,
Yeah.
wait, if you could wait a minute, we want to accept the application first,
Okay.
okay? And then we'll ask you to chime in.
All right.
Does the application seem complete? Anybody have any comments or questions on the application? No?
I make a motion that we accept the application as substantially complete.
Wait, is there a
Frederick
second?
Senna will second it.
Is there a second?
Frederick Senna will second.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Alden, aye.
Tilton,
Senna.
aye.
Aye. Odell, aye.
Thank you.
Christine? Fred?
Ambitsky, aye.
Fred's an aye.
All right. Okay. Now, if you would like to tell us more about the building, since we had a question about it. Hello? Okay, you want to tell us about?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Again, my name's Chris Netto. I'm with Novus Group, and we represent MB Tractor. Can I share my screen with everyone?
Well, just tell us basically what it's about, because right now all we're doing is the lot merger.
Okay, I had a visual, and if it would help anybody to see on the screen, then I could show that, but I can just describe it. That's fine.
That can be done, Jane, if you like.
Okay, if you want to do that, you can do that now then.
Okay, let me just can you identify yourself so I can give you that permission, please, once more?
Chris Nato.
Great, thank you, Chris, and
all right.
I shall give you that right now. Okay, there you go.
Got it. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now.
Can everybody see it? I can.
I got it.
I can see it.
All right. So very quickly, this is Bittern Lane right here that goes up through here. Ice House Pond is at the bottom of your page. Bittern Lane is where my cursor is going here. Route 3 is out here. You've got Lowe's and Kohl's to the north. I'm sorry, it's not the north, but up in this area. The existing MB Tractor is roughly a 30,000 square foot building out front. We came before the board a couple of years ago to do a cold storage building out back. These are actually two separate lots. There's 10 Bittern Lane, and out back is 18 Bittern Lane. We're coming to the board to merge those two lots together. And then we're going to put a roughly 12,600 square foot addition on the retail building out front. And that's these two boxes right here. So that's what this application is for. It's basically a 12,600 square foot addition to the existing retail building that's out front. In doing so, we actually have to fill some wetlands that are between the two lots, for which we've gotten a wetlands permit from the DES. And we're just creating some additional paved area around the buildings for storage of materials and parts and equipment. And then one other thing we're doing on the site, way out back, we're adding some additional paved area for storage of equipment. So basically, in a nutshell, that's it. We have lot merger request, we have a conditional use permit to fill wetlands and buffers, and we have a site plan application to expand the building and the parking area.
Okay, right now our concern is on the lot merger because we don't have the report back from our engineer yet, number one. And number two, there's some concerns that were raised today by the Conservation Commission, and those need to be answered. So let's just discuss the lot merger right now. Okay, you want to talk?
Yeah, again, all we're doing is we're merging 10 Bittern Lane with 18 Bittern Lane. They're two lots abutting each other owned by MB Tractor, and we want to merge them together to create one site. Total of 15 acres in total.
Okay. Anybody on the planning board have any questions? Any objections? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to allow the merger of the two lots.
I'll make a motion. Is that what you're asking for, a motion to accept?
To merge the two lots.
I'll make a motion to accept the merged lot. Frederick Center.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that you, Judy?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All in favor, say aye. Alden, aye.
Frederick Center, aye.
Todd Odell, aye.
Tilton, aye.
Christine? Christine? Have we lost Christine? Christine? Apparently we've lost Christine. Okay, then everybody else has said aye, Janice.
Is Joe?
Jessamine, aye.
Yep. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, okay, Joe. All right. And did you get the list of questions from the Conservation Commission today?
We did get those, and we will address those questions, and we'll actually go to the Conservation Commission. I think their meeting's on the 18th.
Yes, I believe that's what Mr. Mitchell said.
So we'll be before then, before we're back to you on the 26th.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just for Chris, can you hear me, Chris?
I can, yeah.
So you'll be conservation on Monday, and then we'll have our comments, which I'm sure will be submitted to you from Steve Keach, and then we'll review all that as a site plan review on the 26th. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris, for coming.
Okay, we'll see you, Chris, on the 26th.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jane,
Yes.
can you please make a formal motion to continue this public hearing on this application to the 26th so we don't have to renotice?
Yes, I'll make a motion to continue this case until the 26th. Is there a second?
Odell will second.
Second.
All in favor? Alden, yes.
Odell, yes.
Tilton, yes.
Joe?
Jessamine, yes.
Fred? Fred?
Frederick Center, yes.
Christine? I don't know whether we've lost Christine or not.
Dembitsky, aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Okay, thank you.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next case is a change of use review for the Transformative Healthcare New Hampshire Stewart's Ambulance. And this is a non-emergency medical transportation that's used for hospitals. I think right now they're doing training and they're storing PPE. And when they were before us before, one of the members of the planning board requested that they come back and give us more details. So do we have a representative?
I don't know, is Justin, are you there tonight? Is someone from Stewart Ambulance here? If not, I can explain.
Okay.
No, nobody there?
No,
Okay.
well, there's a JF, but I don't know why there's no response from it. Okay, Leanne, if you would like to explain.
So this is, I'm surprised no one's here to answer questions, but maybe they'll come on in a few minutes or they couldn't get on. So they're using the garage. There are two buildings on that site. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
There's two buildings on that site. One's the garage, and it's continuing to be used as a garage, so they did not need a change of review for that building, and they're using that for their ambulances. They did come to you to let you know that they would be doing that with their PPE distribution. They want to use the other building for some training, and just, I guess when employees come and get their vehicles and leave, there'll be like, I think one area where they can kind of go in and wait if they're waiting for a vehicle. He submitted the plan. The only thing I think they're doing is I think most of that parking area is now just, it is not paved. So they're going to pave that or repave it. It might have been paved, and I think it's
It
all
was paved, I think, at one time.
yeah, I think they're just repaving it because it's pretty broken up and deteriorated over there. And then they want to use the interior of the building for some training, but mostly really just for exchanging of employees. There's not going to be any really employees sitting in housing there and doing some minor renovations inside. All the ambulance calls are going to be transport only. It won't be emergencies. So there won't be any lights or sirens or vehicles flying out of there. They're mostly a transport service. However, I don't know. With COVID, they were doing a lot of work for the state with the PPE and testing, and I think they had assumed that by January of this year that would be slowing down, but it doesn't look like that's slowing down. So maybe they might be continuing with that purpose, and I don't know how much what their time frame is for using that location as just transport, I guess, when COVID goes away. So that's the plan they submitted, and the little summary that they submitted to you. They have sat down with myself and Al LaPlante a couple times to review their change of use. So, and Al's been over there a number of times inspecting and giving a CO for that garage. So I'll answer whatever questions I can. If not, if you have unanswered questions, I guess you could continue it till we can get a representative to answer your questions.
My only concern, and I guess this would be a condition that we would put into it, is that if they ever do more than become a transport service, if they ever start doing emergency kinds of services, that they should come back to us.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
that would be a problem, I would think.
Yep.
Anybody else on the board have any comments?
I'm just wondering if they're going to be servicing the ambulances there.
Yes, they will. They will be doing some maintenance and repairs, but I guess that was already done in that building according to my code enforcement. So they'll be continuing to do some tires, minor repairs, and maintenance of the ambulances in that second building.
Joe, that's
And
the
so
old Ryan's building. Ryan's garage was there at one time, I believe.
There is currently two lifts in that back building, so it was a maintenance facility for vehicles.
That was my understanding.
Joe, do you have any other comments or questions?
I'm just wondering, there's a site plan and they don't propose to change the garbage pickup or the snow plowing process or anything, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a fairly, I want to say fairly light use. I don't think it's going to be a more intense use. As far as the building itself, yeah, there will be more traffic of those ambulances obviously going in and out of there, but again, transport only. I don't think it'll be much change. I would think it might be even less than they're doing now because they're doing so much COVID work. But
I was going to say when they came before, it was going to be used mostly for storage.
Right.
I believe a lot of PPE was being stored there.
That's correct. But I think the change, according to what he submitted, was they're going to have, employees will go in, they'll be allowed to change their clothes, there'll be a bathroom there, that type of thing to use the building. They're not allowed to use that building yet until we had a change of use because that building was just storage. And they did want to eventually be allowed to have like small training sessions there as well. I think he mentioned that in his application.
Yes, he also mentioned that when he came before us before.
Right.
There was actually, both buildings had two bathrooms, and actually the front building had showers as well because it was a gym. So pretty much the use isn't going to change much.
Yeah, I think they're just looking to refurbish that a little bit as far as building permits.
Okay.
If they're going to have up to 30 people, they need to talk to the fire department to make sure they have an assembly permit.
Yeah, I think they already have talked to Tim Jobert. So we'll make sure that that's done. You can make that a condition of your approval.
Okay.
I did have Frederick, I did have a question in regards to the application. It, under the, it said describe interior repair / modification, just as completed. Does that satisfy the form?
I didn't understand a word you said, Fred. Can you say that
I didn't
again?
either, Fred.
On the form that they submitted here, towards, I think it's page 1, towards the bottom half, it says describe interior repair / modifications. It just says completed. It doesn't really go into detail of anything. Does that complete the form there, or do we need more clarification there?
Yeah, I think they're just doing renovations. I don't think they're doing any changes in there. I think they were just cleaning up some of the electrical work and the plumbing if needed. But like I think Todd said, I think all those the facilities already existed in that building.
Yeah, according to him,
The building inspector.
they were painting, they were doing some painting, and I think that was all done really before they came to us. The reason that they had to come to us, I believe, was that someone went and peeked in the windows and didn't understand exactly what was going on. But
I think there was some concern that people would be sleeping there too, and that there would be some kind of, overnight facilities, which there will not be. So,
any other comments or questions from the board? Yes, I'm going to open it up in a minute, John. Any more questions from the board? All right, the audience, John, the public.
Hi, yeah, John Scanlon here. I didn't have an opportunity or can't see the plans, but I guess one of the concerns is it's a very broken up pavement or almost non-existent because of the age of it. If they're going to be repaving it, are they making any plans for the drainage and snow storage? This is, I believe it's upstream from MB Tractor, and the water flow from that would go to MB Tractor and towards the pond and the wetlands. So did they state that or show it on any of their plans?
I don't believe they did any drainage studies. I think they were just putting that they were going to improve the paving and put the paving back or upgrade the paving that was existing. So that would be if the board requires him to submit drainage reports, the window drainage reports.
And snow storage, is that on there?
I don't believe.
No, I didn't see any.
I'm just going to say I filed that for the last 3 years, and you can only push it a certain amount of ways, and I don't think it's going to change if it's paved or not paved. Just my personal opinion, not that I'm a professional as far as paving and that goes, but I don't think that no situation is going to change anything.
I believe
Still has to be shown on the plan though, Todd.
previously, I believe it was a gym. Wasn't that the last use?
I'm sorry, Jane?
I think it was a gym. I think that was the last use of it. It was a gym. I think Sokol's Gym.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that.
It's hard to say without the representative of the company here to answer these questions.
I would like to have them come before us at the next meeting. I'd like to make a motion to have that happen so that we could get some of these questions cleared up.
Jessamine second.
All in favor?
Jessamine,
Tilton,
yes.
Can I just, am I muted? No, I'm on. Could I just ask, so I will get in touch with Mr. Van Eaton and ask a representative to come, and we might as well make him aware of the concerns, and the concerns are for is that the board's concerns? I know someone in the public had concern. Are there any specific concerns you would like him to address ahead of time?
Yes. Where does the snow plowing go?
Okay.
When I know that he's just taking over a property that's already existing. Somewhere there must be a plan. It must have been site planned in the past that shows where all those things go. But I don't see any of that stuff, and without it, I can't really vote one way or the other.
And also, I think we need to know specifically what he's going to do with the pavement. I mean, it could be he's replacing what's there. It could be he's going to enlarge it. We need to know the specifics of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Leanne, I think if you look back, I think if Leanne looks back, the last few businesses that went in there did not come for site plan,
Did not.
No.
did not.
Okay, I'll see what I can find.
I think the last company that I remember coming was a glass company.
Yeah, I think it was the glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
then
gym
it
next to
became a
us.
gym.
Yeah, and he wasn't responsible for any of the plowing for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Jane,
pass that along.
Jane, if you could, I'm not sure we finished the roll call vote, or if it was finished, I didn't pick them all up.
Okay. Alden, yes.
Thank you.
Senna, yes.
Thank you.
Todd,
Odell, yes.
Joe,
Jessamine is yes.
Tilton,
Yes.
Jim Binsky.
Yes.
Was that Christine?
I think she's not there any longer. I think she's dropped off.
Okay.
Yes,
Hey.
Leanne.
So I just got a text message that Justin is calling in or trying to get on. I don't know if you want to wait or now that you've already moved on it. That's your decision, Madam Chair, but Justin, are you there? Hold on. It says, I just got a message, Justin is calling in. Tim, do you see that Justin is calling in?
It's yes.
Not just yet, but I did just hear Christine speak.
Christine? Can you hear us, Christine?
Yes.
She said Christine.
Yes.
Okay.
Seems like Justin just got on.
Okay, I think your caller's now online.
Yes, Justin.
Yes.
Yes, we had some
Didn't vote
questions.
yes, Jane.
Okay.
Thank you.
Justin,
Yes, ma'am.
we had some questions and we were going to have you come back, but if you're here, maybe you can answer them.
I'll
You
do
have-
my best to try.
You have not indicated what you're going to do with snow storage.
We've got a contract to have it plowed to the amount reasonably available and then to be hauled off site to the extent that the banks get too large.
Okay. Anybody want to question any more about that?
That sounds very ambiguous.
This is Christine.
Yes, Christine.
Yes, I can hear all of you.
Okay. Okay.
You can hear
Justin?
me?
Yes, we can now. We couldn't before. Justin, where are you going to plow it location wise until you have to remove it because the banks get too big? Are you plowing it to the left or the right to where it's always been plowed? You need to be more specific with us.
That I don't know, ma'am. So as you're driving in on the right-hand side, I know, now I don't know with the Gaudets having sold their dealership if they're still going to do that, but in my lease, they had retained the right to continue to park some of their vehicles there. So I know that needed to be maintained open. The parking as you come in on the left-hand side was where my employees would be parking. The contract with our snow removal company doesn't specify where exactly they're supposed to be leaving it. It just says something to the effect of, that they'll manage their snow removal, and when the banks get too large that it blocks the use of the available parking, they'll have it hauled off site. But we didn't, this was our first year doing this with them, so I didn't specify anything more specific than that. There's nothing like to do with it.
I have one question for the board. We're asking them where they're going to put the snow now, but they're asking for a change of use. We didn't ask them to specifically put snow in a location earlier. We didn't ask them to only plow a certain amount of space. We're kind of changing what we're asking them to do.
No, we're just asking where they're going to store the snow, where they're going to put it when they remove it from the lot.
No, but my question is if they hadn't come for a change of use, they still had the same space.
Correct.
They were still going to plow the same space. So now we're asking for specific locations on where they're going to plow it.
That's correct.
That brings up another question. If this property has not been site planned in the past, is this a change of use or does it need a site plan?
How does the board feel about that? When they came to us before, there was no comment about changing the pavement. Nothing like that was mentioned. We talked about parking, but we didn't talk about a complete change of the pavement. And that is a concern because of the wetlands.
Justin, are you doing new pavement or just paving what's already been paved that's all broken?
We're only paving what's already been paved and broken. We're not adding any new paved area.
All right. Does the board have any other comments? Do we need a site plan? I mean, they're not, to me, it's strictly a change of use and they're doing some improvements. If they're not going to enlarge the lot, I don't see that that's an issue. Other comments, please? Other comments?
I'm good.
Christine? Any comments, Christine? Joe?
No.
Any comments?
No.
Judy?
Nope.
Do you think we need a site plan review?
Joe, what's your thought?
I'm a no. It's in existence right now. It's going to be plowed no matter what.
Yep.
He's not expanding the area of parking. The other questions have pretty much been answered.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
The space is the space.
Like I said earlier, my only concern is if they ever change and start bringing ambulances in and out of there for other than transport, then I think they need to come back. That would be the only condition I would have. How do people feel about that?
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion then to accept it with that condition? Silence. All right, I'll make a motion to accept it as presented, with the one condition that should they in the future start using the space for more than transport ambulances, they need to come back and see us.
I'll make a
Great.
motion.
Second.
Okay, all in
I'll sec-
favor? All in favor?
No.
All,
Can you hear?
yes?
Me, yes.
Christine? You said no? Alden, yes.
Odell, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Frederick, yes.
Tilton?
Yes.
Christine? Christine? All right, well, that is a yes then, I guess. With that one condition that should they change to start using ambulances for more than transport, they're to come back to see us.
And did we get Todd in there?
Yes, he said yes.
Thank you.
And Justin, I think, yeah, so Jane is just talking about if you would have changed to an emergency ambulance service from transport.
Yep. Nope. I agree completely. We would want to do that. If we changed, we'd want to come back. So I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Christine. All right, Justin, thank you. Sorry to disturb your night.
No worries. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay. And our next is the public hearing for our zoning amendments. Did everybody get a copy of the zoning amendments? There was a question about the solar, which is what we need to discuss to say whether we're going to accept it or not accept it. And I guess some people did not get portions of it. And Leanne resent it. Did everybody get those copies?
Yes.
I got nothing
Yeah.
from Leanne. I just got it off the website and it was a mess.
Okay, what part was the mess, Judy? Because I got it and I didn't have a problem with it. John sent me what he got.
Did you pull it
That's not,
offline?
I pulled it off the website, Leanne. John sent
The
me
formatting is difficult.
Right, well, this ordinance was submitted by one of the selectmen and brought forward as is. So that was the draft that was submitted to me and requested that it be brought to public hearing. So I did not draft that. That was the format it was in, and I posted it.
the only thing that I can think of, and John sent me a copy of what he pulled up, which is not what I got, but I think it may have been the difference between a PDF and some other format that was sent in. Christine, were you able to read yours? Christine?
Yes.
Okay, you were able to read it without any
Yes,
problem?
I was able to read it.
Okay. And Fred, I know you and I had talked about
Yes.
it. I think, okay,
I had no problem with my
Okay.
version.
all right. Did everybody have a chance to peruse it and study it? I think that this is something that when John approached me about it, I thought it was a good idea, only because we run into problems with a couple of solar companies that have come to see us. I think it's something we'll see more and more of in the future. It's not going to be a one-shot deal, and that it's probably a good idea to look at it now. How did you feel about the ordinance? Comment?
I like it. I think it provides clarity that we don't have currently.
I
Exactly.
agree, and I think you'll see more and more of this as time goes on. It's my own opinion.
Are you open to public comments or will the board discuss it and then
We're,
public?
we're going to open it to the public after the board discusses it, because unfortunately, we did not have a time to look at this before tonight's meeting. So that's why we as a board are discussing it now, and then we'll take comments from the public. How does the board feel about putting this on the ordinances for town meeting.
I like it. I agree with it. That's pretty good.
I like it, but I'd like to hear from the public before we take a vote.
Okay. All right. Any public comment?
I-
John Scanlon, I can see your hand. I can't see other.
Can I just make one request, Jane? Could you just formally open the public hearing for the zoning ordinances for the record?
I thought I did right in the beginning. I
Okay.
said we'll move on to the public hearing on the zoning ordinances.
Okay, well, you just opened it to the public, so we're just going to make it right now as a time to open to the public. Thank you.
All right, John.
I guess, yeah, and excuse me, Miss Me, I just want to give a little history. So I didn't want to cut in front of you, but I might be able to answer a couple things and explain, which might help. One of the things is, as we know, solar is a good thing. It takes our reliance on fossil fuels away. The problem is that presently we don't really have any ordinance or anything to really do it in a thoughtful way. So I've been working on this for a while, and a lot with information from the state as well as from other towns, and listening to hearings from other towns. I think somebody's rattling there. But the key thing is the purpose. The purpose is to regulate the implementation of solar energy in accordance with the Tilton Master Plan. It's also to promote environmental sustainability while respecting the aesthetics and preserve the rural characteristics as seen from public roads and the use of productive agricultural lands. The other part is to comply and support the state of New Hampshire's goal of developing clean, safe, renewable energy resources as provided in the statutes as listed above. So what it does is it allows, it's pretty liberal with allowing people to put stuff on their homes and residential with only requiring the standard building permit. But it gives a little bit more guidance for people who are going to do it, what the zoning board, if adopted, would be asking for information. As we know, I think there was a couple other ones, who's Gaslight and the other one, White Rock, who came before planning. And it's really hard for you guys to do something unless there's some type of format. So I was hoping that when it was stated that there wasn't much time to pull something together, that's why I had sent it over to Leanne and to the planning board as something that's been in the works for quite a while, and see if you guys want to adopt it, because a lot of the work's been done. So that's about it. And if anybody has any questions, I've been studying this. I vetted through a lot of other authorities and people in town, and made a few changes. But I'm available if anybody has any questions.
One of the things I liked about it is that it seems to address every kind of situation you might be in, and every type of residence or um, I'm trying to think of what I want to call, I guess, condominium association. That's what those were. They come to us in the past, but I think it's all inclusive, and I think that's excellent. I think it's a very good job, John.
So I have this is Tom Mead.
Yes, Tom.
And I have an observation. I did read the proposal, and my observation is that in certain instances, it seems to be somewhat constraining and a little bit at odds with the notion that it is promoting solar energy at the residential level, not people wanting to come in and build solar farms, but people who want to put up solar panels on their own property. And I'm speaking specifically of the provisions for well, I think in your ordinance is referred to as freestanding. Others
Mhm.
might refer to as ground-mounted solar panels. And as the ordinance stands now, as I read it, the permissible locations of ground-mounted freestanding solar panels are dictated by the current location of the existing dwelling. So if, for example, your existing dwelling is as far from the frontage road of your property as it can possibly be, you're almost precluded from putting in a ground-mounted solar system as the statute reads now. So the statute, the location of these freestanding units is going to be very dependent on your current location of your dwelling, the shape of your property, the conditions that you're working with. And as I read that ordinance, it might actually be prevent people from utilizing the property that they otherwise would be perfectly suitable for a freestanding solar panels. So I think that could stand either a little more discussion, a little adjustment, some clarity as to how a property owner could actually work with the town to put a system in, none of which seemed completely clear to me. So those are my comments.
I might be able to address some of that, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So if you look at the last page, single family duplex residential system. So looked into it and what a lot of the other towns are doing. So it is permitted as an accessory use to any single family or duplex resident with the permit only. However, as Tom pointed out, it is, if it does not fall behind the front plane of the house or on a corner, the side plane of the house, it would have to go for a special exception. So if you were extraordinarily far back from the road and you wanted to put a freestanding that would be more towards the front of the lot, you would have to just get a special exception. And the reason behind that is it's kind of hard to regulate, but if you just allowed it completely, somebody as myself who has, I think I'm 40 feet from the road, I could actually put a freestanding solar as it is now to cover the whole front of my property and as high as I wish. But if somebody was, let's say, a farm and they were 100 feet back from the road, they could go for a special exception so that maybe that could be pushed a little bit more forward. You know, it wouldn't be as obtrusive. So, and I don't know if that helps at all, Tom, or if you already realized that.
Well, no, I recognize that. And I guess the underlying premise is that a solar panel installation is intrusive. So that's a little bit in the eye of the beholder. I'm not sure there are any other auxiliary structures that everybody can put up wherever they want in whatever shape they want without restriction. Why this would necessarily be a special class of freestanding structure.
Well, I think that's where the special exception would come in. So permission would have to be granted for a special exception.
So I understand.
Jane, Scott Davis, can I ask a question?
Sure, Scott.
I know at the town meeting last year when we discussed this, or the year before, when it was discussed on the town meeting floor, there was grave concern from the taxpayers of what the tax implications were going to be if someone went ahead with a solar panel on a residential property. Is that addressed in any fashion of what the value? I think that there was talking about each panel and how they were going to be tax assessed for each panel. And it almost took, what it did is it almost took the value away of someone investing in solar panels at a residential level because of the steep tax implications that they were going to be faced with. Is that addressed in any fashion now? Because that was a grave concern that a lot of residents had.
John, did you look into that at all? Scott, I understand your concern because I've thought of putting solar in, and that's been one of my concerns. And I know that people who have solar now are concerned about what's going to come down the pipe.
Well, I think there's two different things here. There's one when we're talking about a residential that someone puts it on to reduce their own impact. And then there's another one when there's companies that, like on the Laconia Road, that come in and place multiple units in as a commercial entity. I think that there's two different things there. And unfortunately, I think it's sad when the residential taxpayer tries to do something to take himself out of, what he's costing for public electricity and trying to help it as much as possible, only to lose all the benefit of the cost savings to the taxation.
I completely agree, but that's really not in the purview of the planning board.
I clearly understand that, but I think that there's only two ways that warrant articles can get placed on the warrants, either through the select board or as petition warrant article.
Correct.
So this had to come from the select board because I don't think it's a petition warrant article.
Actually, it came from one particular selectman.
Yes, but what I'm saying is there's only two ways. So my question is through the planning board. Unfortunately, this is the only option I have is the public hearing. Yes. I'm asking the question, did the select board, when it was brought to the planning board, talk about what was the concern of the legislative body of the town meeting about the taxation portion of this? Because if they didn't, shame on them.
Okay.
John, I'm sorry.
I could probably answer all that really quick. This is not from the select board. It's not from me personally as a citizen. I did spend the time to do it. At the last meeting of the planning board, they reviewed all of the warrant articles, and Leanne had stated that, she was trying to work on something with this, but didn't know if she had enough time to get it all together in time for this meeting. So I handed over what I had to the planning board and to Leanne, so the planning board could decide if this would be something that she could, put together, edit, change. She had a copy of it, and have it for the planning board along with the other ones that were discussed at the previous meeting. Regarding the taxes, this is more, it's just for the placement and the building and the planning and for the, the residents and the planning department to address these concerns that are going to be coming up a lot. The tax thing is going to have to, sometimes people have come before us for payments in lieu of taxes and all that. Somebody would have to go and produce a thing to allow or not allow taxes to be exempted on solar, and whether or not they'd be on residential or on enterprise systems. So that would have to be, in my eyes, a completely different thing. But the main thing was to thoughtfully have solar so it meets with our master plan and, preserve our, rural integrity of our town. So that's the only purpose of this. That's it.
I know that didn't answer your question, Scott, but
I clearly understand. No, but I clearly understand what John's saying. I guess my point is, where's a public hearing, if you go back and you watch the last town meeting that the public was there when this came up, the discussion was all over the place. But one thing that came clear from that discussion from the legislative body is they wanted the governing body, which is the select board, to move forward in a way that didn't penalize the consumer. I'm not talking about the commercial entities. I'm talking about the
The
residential
resident, yeah.
that was looking at trying to reduce their footprint on the electrical grid to not be penalized to the point that it's not cost effective for them to move forward. And unfortunately, the only venue I have to express my concern with what took place there is tonight in this public hearing, because we're addressing solar. And I hear what you're saying, John. I think that's right. We got to address it so that it lines up with the master plan. But I also think that, of course, any warrant article can be amended in any fashion at town meeting. But what I think should have been done is the select board should have done some research on what, we give exemptions for a lot of things in town. If somebody, and I'm not talking about someone putting on so many solar panels that they're selling so much electricity back through the grid. I'm talking about that they're trying to reduce their electrical impact to zero at their residence, at their primary residence. There should be some kind of a tax break for those individuals within town. And I would hope that the select board would have heard with the citizens, because that's what I heard at that meeting from a lot of people, that there was concerns of people who wanted to move forward with something, but wouldn't move forward, just as Jane stated, because of the impact on their taxes, just washed out whatever savings they were going to have with the investment, because it's an investment on your property. But it's an investment also to take yourself off the electrical grid. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. 2 selectmen here tonight. I hope you heard that.
Oh, I heard it.
Okay.
I'm
All
sure
right.
we'll be discussing it at the selectmen's meeting real soon.
Okay.
Jane, I just had a quick question. It's Juliet Harvey Bolia. 2 questions. Can you put the purposes and intents of all these amendments on any legal notices that are going out in the future? I think that's going to help clarify a lot of this. And are you going to have a second hearing?
Can I answer that, Jane?
Yes, you can, Leanne.
So as far as legal notices, Juliet, the RSA does allow that any lengthy ordinance or master plan not be completely all posted on the public notice. There was a public notice that did go out, but the entire ordinance isn't required to be public noticed. However, it was on the website, and we can, for the second hearing, try and get it on the, if the planning board still has to decide tonight whether to move forward with this. They have not decided whether this will go to a second hearing or if they're going to move forward with this to the warrant. But if they do, we can try and place it on the homepage in its entirety in a PDF. So if that would be helpful, okay?
That would be, thanks.
Okay, is any other questions or comments from the public? All right, planning board, do you have any suggestions or changes you would like to see made to this? Or would you like to move forward with it? I would like to move forward with it. Other comments?
The table of values.
Pardon?
I asked John if he could explain the table, the chart of permitted uses. This is how it came out when it was printed. And it's 28 pages, so I have no idea what it really looks like as what is a permitted use, what is not a permitted area.
John, you're muted.
Okay, and now you can hear me now, I'm sure. So yeah, there was something that in the process of posting it from Word documents to something that's on the website, And I thought about it and I looked at it, and I think it's because the original document that was in landscape form and the rest of it was in portrait. So when it got posted to the website, it didn't like trying to mix a landscape and a portrait file. So if you have a copy that was emailed you, it should print. Does that make sense, Tim? I don't know.
Tim, does that make sense? See,
I, I didn't
table,
I didn't see the source document, so yeah, no, that's
That's
understandable.
you can kind of see this. As you can see, this is the other ones were portrait, and this was that. So when it went that way, I guess it got confused.
so Judy, do you have specifics that you,
So the body of it looks good, but I can't tell
Yeah.
what the chart of uses is. So I don't know that I'm comfortable saying, yes,
okay,
this is good when I don't know which districts can do what.
did
If you can share
Leanne,
my screen, I can
Who sent
update.
us the email?
Show you.
Was this the John email or the Jane email?
This is Leanne's email.
Leanne's email?
I got nothing this from Leanne.
All right, I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it to you again. I'll send you the Word document, Judy, and maybe that might be clearer rather than the PDF. If I can, let me see.
And I don't know why you got so many pages.
There's a bunch of ones that just have blank lines on them.
Right on the
When I got this document, I just changed it to a PDF and sent it along. I didn't make any changes to the document because this wasn't a planning board document. So hold on. Let me get this to Judy. Judy, I'm going to send it to tollering@cs.com. Is that the correct email?
Yes.
Leanne, is it something you have, or does someone have it on their system in the right format that I could make you the presenter and display it?
I mean, I have it on mine. I can open it up and share it.
Okay.
It's the one that has the X on it. I can share the screen.
Okay.
It just went, Judy, so you can get it in a minute.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
Much clearer.
Okay.
Okay, so we're
That's
all
the
set.
Word document. Okay.
There we go.
Are you able to see it on the share screen?
Yes, we can see. I can see it. Can everybody else see it?
Yeah.
Looks good, Fred. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yep.
I'll give everybody a few minutes to look at it. Because I got it correctly and apparently Fred did too. I don't know what happened. Anybody have any questions now that you can understand? Judy?
Oh, looks good.
Okay.
And I guess I have one comment. Let's see, am I here? Yep, you can hear me. I just noticed something that was from some notes that are not supposed to be on there on the table of uses. There's a couple places where it says see Article XX.
Yes.
That just a note I had put in there while working on it for a reference for me to go look at something else, and that should have been removed. So if you do accept it, I'd ask that you would accept it with those being removed from the table of uses.
Okay. Do you see those? Does everybody see those? It's under duplex and under energy systems.
Yes.
That's the only two places I see it. Do you see it anyplace else, John?
No, that was it. I
It's actually in 3 places on the table of contents. The first one,
Yep.
the second one, and then
Oh, I
the
see it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
here.
Freestanding.
Here, and then here.
And that was on there to remind me when I was working on to go back and look at the definitions on the first page, and I forgot to take it out.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Again, what are your feelings about moving forward with this? Yes, no, further study?
If everyone agrees, I like it. I agree moving forward with it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
make a
Mr.
motion that we support the solar energy systems draft ordinance as presented, with the exception of the enterprise solar energy system accessory use, see Article XX, removed.
I'll second that. All in favor? Alden, aye.
Frederick Senna, yes.
Jessamine,
Odell,
yes.
Todd? Todd, I think you started to say something. You got cut off.
Oh, I said Odell, yes.
Judy?
Tilton, yes.
Christine? Christine? think we lost Christine again.
She
Okay,
probably has a slow connection.
Christine. Okay, then we will move ahead
Christine,
with
if we
this.
can't hear you, put it in chat.
Deb, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's
There you go.
unanimous. That's unanimous. So we'll move.
Dembitsky, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
yes,
Okay. Thank you.
yes, yes.
Thank you, Christine. All right.
Dembitsky, yes.
Okay. So Leanne, we'll move ahead with that one. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's going to
Thank
have
you.
to go on a second public hearing.
Yes. Okay. The next one. Or any other comments from the public? No. All right. The second one is.
Welcome.
All right. Let me get. Shall the town adopt Amendment 1 as proposed by the Tilton Planning Board? A single-family home or two-family house lot in any residential or mixed-use district may contain only one building used for dwelling purposes. More than one building on lots for multifamily, including cluster of multifamily, is permitted. All right, is anyone in the public like to address this? Comment on it.
None.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out what a multifamily lot is.
So you could have a cluster, you could have commercial property. This is really just to one use per property. You can't have three houses. You can't build three homes on one lot. This is what this would restrict.
Okay, so the other question, if you have a home and you have another building already on your lot that could never be used for resident, for, I forget how you describe it,
Dwelling?
for dwelling, yeah.
I'm not sure what you mean. So, I mean, if you already have two dwellings on your lot, obviously they would be grandfathered. I'm not sure. There are provisions for, ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units, if that's what you're referring to, and there's a process for that. So I'm not, I guess if you had another building on your property, like, I don't know what you mean, like a barn or I don't know what other building you would have, a garage, and you want to build above a garage, that would be an ADU. So I'm not really.
Well, okay, in my case, I have a 4-bedroom house on my property, as well as a 20 by 50, or no, I think it's about 25 by 50 building, 2 stories. It's like a split level house.
So you have two homes on your property now?
It's not a home, but and I was renting it out. I had a store in the bottom part, and I had in the other part there was a bakery, and I had planned for when I purchased this lot that at some time my neighborhood is multifamily with rental units, that I'd be able to possibly convert that into two apartments, upstairs, downstairs apartments. So I would not be able to do that under this.
I'm not really clear on what the configuration is from what your explanation is, but I would say no, unless you went for a variance from the zoning board. But again, it sounds like it's a commercial property with a bakery and all that, so this really doesn't apply to that if it's already a multifamily. So I'm not clear on what the whole configuration and the zone and all that is, just from what you're describing, but it sounds like it might not be allowed and it would have to go through zoning board.
So it would remove, yeah, I guess that would be pretty disappointing to me because it would make my property pretty much, I couldn't do what I had planned, which was previously allowed, which would allow me to retire and survive.
I agree with John.
It's not a commercial, and you could not really operate any type of business because you couldn't have a parking lot. You could park 2 cars, but you can't have a viable business. The bakery was just stuff in and out. So
So
it
what
was
zone is this in? How many dwelling units are allowed in that zone now? Do you know? I don't even know where you're talking, so I don't know what's allowed now.
I'm on Main Street, Marson Ave and Main Street, right across from Chili's. And like I said, I think it's about 30 by 60, the size of the building. And it's 2 level. It's just like a split entry type house or that, 2 levels. And that was my retirement.
Right, but you must have only a certain number of dwellings allowed. So what this is intended to restrict is if you are allowed 2 dwellings, the way the ordinance is written now, you can have 2 apartments, but not, this would say you can't have 2 separate homes built on your property. So that's what, or 3 homes if you're allowed 3 dwellings. But I'm not sure again where you are because I don't have that listing here.
What's the difference between a home and a dwelling?
Building. So this is buildings versus dwellings. It's some of the verbiage. So now in your ordinance, it says, for example, in the mixed use district, right, you're allowed 2 dwellings. So you could have a house with a 2-family home there, right, because it's 2 dwellings. But this wouldn't allow you to have 2 separate homes.
So I couldn't have 2 separate dwellings.
Right. You could have 2 separate dwellings, just not 2 separate buildings. So, for example, in the
I'm confused.
in the downtown, 4 dwellings are allowed right now. Okay, so you really can have
In one building?
You could build 4 separate houses if you wanted, because it doesn't say structures, it just says dwellings. So this would say that you can have, that's why it doesn't apply to multifamily. So this would restrict you from building allowing everyone to have 2 separate homes on their property. Homes being buildings, separate detached buildings with 2 addresses and 2 driveways and everything that goes along with 2 buildings. That's what this is addressing.
I already have that.
Okay, then you're grandfathered. Then you would be grandfathered if you have two buildings.
But there's nobody living next door. That was my plan eventually to do it. So I guess I'm confused between a home, a building, a dwelling, and a house on one lot. It doesn't seem real clear to me.
So this restricts structures and buildings versus dwellings, which would be an apartment or an accessory dwelling. That's all.
So I would be allowed.
Do you know what district you're in? I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, it's the residential commercial. It's one next to Planet Honda.
So you're in a commercial district?
No, residential. It's split.
Mixed use? You're in mixed use? I can look it up. I'll look it up right here.
I think it's mixed use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mixed, I believe, on Morrison.
Yeah.
It's not letting me go in. But mixed use is 2 dwellings. So you're allowed 2 dwelling units.
And they could be multifamily.
Well, 2 dwelling is multifamily, right? Well, multifamily, right. Those 2-family, multifamily. Multifamily is usually referred to more than 2-family.
Okay, so I could have my house, which originally was 2-family. I could have that as 2-family, and then the other one I could convert into a 2-family as well.
No, that would be 4 dwellings. You're only allowed, in the zone right now, you're only allowed 2 dwellings. That's already in the ordinance. Now, I don't know what you're grandfathered for, or I'd have to check back and see when that was established. But right now, your home is in the mixed use, you're allowed 2 dwelling units. That's it, even without this change. That's what the ordinance says, 2. So if you have
Jane?
2, you have 2 in your house, that's it for that lot. That's what it says.
Are we
Right
still on
after that,
topic in agenda? I'm just curious.
What's that, Tom? I'm sorry?
I'm just asking if we're still on agenda.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
we
on,
are, because we're talking about this particular amendment.
Jane,
It
can I
just
ask
seems
a question?
confusing.
Yes, Scott?
Maybe I'm sorry.
What I don't understand on this, I guess is confusing for me, is where it refers to any residential mixed-use district. Leanne just said that the village district, downtown district, which is a village district, can allow 4. But that's also a residential district too, because there's people that reside, they have their residence within that village district. I
right.
guess I'm confused that if they already can have 4, how can we, I guess, I don't know. I
This
guess
is,
this,
Scott, this doesn't change that there would still be 4 dwelling units allowed, but it would not allow 4 separate buildings on that one lot.
I understand, but if, say what John was mentioning, if he was in the village district, then he could have 2 buildings with 2 units in each building, is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Well, then that's 4 dwellings.
Right, he can have 4 dwelling. Oh, right now?
Yeah, well, if he was in the village district,
If
if
he
he
was
was
in,
in the village district, and the
yeah,
village district, as you stated, will allow 4 dwellings, correct?
correct.
So right now, if his property was within the village district, he would be able to have 2 units in his house and 2 units in the other building on his property.
That's
And that
correct.
would be 4 dwellings.
That's correct.
If this goes through, if this is allowed, does it take the ability for those people to have 4 dwellings in the village district away from them? That's my question, because it's a
Okay,
residential district.
right. In the residential district, they would still be allowed to have 4 dwelling units, but not 4 buildings, separate buildings. That's the difference.
So this takes nothing away from them.
It just takes away the separate buildings on the lot.
But they are separate buildings.
John, because they already exist, I understand that. But you only can have 2 in your district anyway, so. And the buildings already exist. You can always, nobody's gonna make you take down your buildings, but you can only have 2 dwellings. So nothing really would change for you, John.
Well, a dwelling, if one house has 2, let's say, apartments, or it's a 2-family house, that's considered 2 dwellings.
Yep.
Okay, but that's not what I'm saying. If I have 2 buildings, can I have 2 dwellings in this building and 2 dwellings in the other?
You can't, because that would be 4 dwellings and you're only allowed 2 on one lot. Currently, not with this change. Currently, you're allowed 2 dwellings. If you came to me today and said, can I put 2 apartments in that building? I would have to say no, that the zoning ordinance only allows 2 dwellings in that district. Maximum residential density is 2.
Would you
So
be able to go for
multifamily is,
if you needed it?
and how does multifamily play into this? Because that's stated in there.
How does multifamily play into there? Well, you have to go to the multifamily ordinance. But is multifamily allowed in your district? I'd have to go to that. We're talking about dwellings. So
I'm just, how does it play in that thing? Not to me, but in general.
multifamily is excluded from this, right? Did that? Where's the wording on the ordinance?
It says including cluster multifamily.
Right. Not including cluster multifamily, right?
No, it says more than 1 building on lots from multifamily, including cluster multifamily, is permitted.
Right, is permitted, right. So it excludes that from that restriction, because a cluster is that it allows more than one home on a lot. But they have to go to planning board for that requirement.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question to get clarification on, I'm confused here. Below
Yes.
me is the old Tilton Inn that's for sale currently. It's a large lot within town, probably over an acre and a half.
It's down the street from your house, right?
Yeah, right at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
And it has a garage that was attached, that was built on, it's for sale.
Yeah.
That lot is a large lot. That is, I believe we are in the village residential district.
I think you're
where
right.
that lot is.
Yes.
So my question is this, why I have concern is this is acting like it's throwing all the residential districts within the town of Tilton, if I'm not mistaken, all into the same bucket. Is that true? Because it says any residential or mixed use district. Is that what's happening here is all of the districts now that are residential districts being put into the same pot?
Yes, with
Okay.
regard to limiting buildings, yes.
Okay, but currently the residential district has more flexibility. I mean, the village district has more flexibility than other residential districts, which has been stated here previously.
No, because you can't have more buildings.
I know you can't have more buildings. You can have 4 dwellings within the village district. That was just stated a minute ago.
Yes,
that exists now, Scott.
I know it exists, but if this goes through, it's not going to exist, Leanne.
Yeah, it will. It will.
No? How will it?
It's not changing. The ordinance isn't changing the density requirements of the district. It's just changing the number of buildings you have in that density requirement.
Boy, I'm confused, I guess, I have to say.
So
I'm confused too.
in the village district now, for example, there's the building across from town hall that has the laundromat. They're allowed 4 apartments in there on that little tiny lot, okay, across where they're doing some renovations. The ordinance allows 4 dwelling units. Right? You'll still allow 4 dwelling units. The difference is it wouldn't allow 4 buildings to go on that lot, all with separate dwellings. If you have a house on an acre lot or a half-acre lot, and you wanted to build a house on your lot for your daughter, and you're in a zone that allows 2 dwellings, the only way you could do it would be to have a two-family or a duplex, but you couldn't build 2 separate homes with 2 separate addresses and 2 separate driveways in town with the current zoning, if this were to pass. Right now, you can.
So it is changing then, in a way.
It is changing in a way and not allowing to build separate homes, multiple separate homes on a single lot. It would force you to subdivide if you had enough land or to build an accessory. I'm sorry?
And street frontage.
Right.
Yeah.
And if this is not the wish of the planning board to do this, they can at this time remove that from the law, or from the adoption. It's how you want your town configured, and if you want to allow people to build multiple homes on their property and have separate addresses, even though they have one lot, and driveways and curb cuts.
No, I'm good with the not having 2 buildings on one lot, except the case of like John. He's already got 2 buildings, but he's only got currently 1 dwelling unit. He can't make 4 dwelling units on his lot just because he has 2 buildings?
No, he could not, according to the ordinance is now written. He's allowed 2 dwellings is the maximum density for that lot. And some of that is due to a number of factors, right? Because, you know, density was established by this town long before I. So, I mean, that's the density they wanted. You would have to change your density to allow 4 units in that district, or he'd have to go get a variance from the zoning board.
This ordinance in no way changes the situation John's talking about. He can't do it now according to the ordinances.
Correct. He's limited to 2 base maximum residential density dwelling units per lot, not per house. So if you look at your ordinance of your table of dimensional values, the way it reads, and I'm interpreting it, these are, you know, your ordinances. You can tell me if I'm wrong. It says base maximum residential density dwelling units per lot. And in the mixed use, it says 2. So, I mean, so I guess you're saying we could interpret that as well. If he had 3 houses, he could have 6 dwelling units on that lot? I mean, I don't know. I interpret it that 2 dwelling units per lot means 2 dwelling units per lot. And I think in our
Yeah, I see.
definition, you have a definition of dwelling units is a living
So this
facility.
doesn't affect John one way or the other.
No.
Correct.
Oh, hi, guys.
Seems like it does. I guess I'm confused. Because I look up and down the road and I see other buildings that have 4 or 6 in them on small lots all along here.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that because I didn't approve anything going that way, but I'm just reading from your ordinance. So if anyone interprets that differently, you can let me know and I will start to have our code enforcement and enforce it that way.
No, I just think it could be a little more clear. I don't think people will be understanding what they're voting for.
Well, I think we're allowed to put a narrative under the ordinance. So we can add that for the next hearing if you want. I'll have to check that with our attorney.
Madam Chair, can you have it stated again? What is the purpose of the change? What are we trying to accomplish? Because I kind of lost my way here with listening to this.
Leanne, do you want to address that?
Yeah, Scott, I think we're just trying to limit multiple houses on lots because a dwelling just says 2 dwellings per lot. So that, in my interpretation, if you came to me and said, can I build a separate house? If I'm allowed 2 dwelling units, I would say yes right now. You can build a separate house on your lot. Because there's nowhere in our ordinance that says you can't have multiple homes on your lot. So this wouldn't disallow that if that is the wishes of the board with regard to the planning and zoning of the town. That's really all it is. Or disallowing 4 separate buildings. You'd have to have your 4 units in one building. Again, excluding obviously anyone who's grandfathered who already has it. We're not going to shut down any buildings or kick people out of residence. They must be grandfathered from the date of the ordinance is passed or not passed. Still has to go to the voters. So it's really up to the planning board how they want to proceed with this. Is that clear, Scott, as far as what the change is?
Yep, thank you.
It gets confusing in a town when you start to have multiple homes on lots, on small lots, addresses and driveways and sale and then people sell one and they're not condominiumized, and it just in land planning it gets pretty confusing. So this is my recommendation, and I had brought this to the board before they wanted to go forward, and if they choose not to, again, that's fine. We'll continue to allow.
I think the concern I had is, Madam Chair, the concern I had is throwing all the residential districts that you can reside as a resident into one bucket. What was the change? And because I know there's variances between all of them of what is allowed. And that was the concern I had. What were we, with this change, what were we taking away from some, or what were we giving to others, I guess? And I didn't know the answer to that. And that's what I was asking for clarification on, what we were trying to accomplish with this.
Well, anybody who's already there wouldn't change. They'd be grandfathered. But you brought up the place
Yeah,
that
but still, it will change in the future.
Right, so it would really affect the only zones right now that are allowed more than one dwelling. So medium residential is only allowed one now. So that wouldn't affect them because they're not allowed two anyway. So it would only be mixed use, it would be village, and it would be downtown. Which none of them really have the lot sizes to support multiple buildings, multiple residential buildings, I wouldn't think, but.
Well, I have a neighbor across the street that would have that because she has land on 3 streets. So she has the street frontage and she has almost an acre's worth of land. So it would affect that lot for future use, because there's one dwelling there now, or one home with one dwelling in it. But that would affect that lot if someone was going to purchase that to build, because you could essentially build 3 more units on there, correct? With what's being stated.
That's correct.
So it would affect the resale of that lot because, like I said, she has frontage on Linden, she has frontage on Pine, and she has frontage on Highland. So she has multiple, the 100-foot, she meets all over the place. So that lot there could be 4 buildings put on that lot with the frontage she has, and still meet the minimum requirements for a building lot within the village district.
Right. Which is also my point. I mean, is that what you want to allow 4 more buildings on?
Well,
so again,
I'm just saying for value. I know they're being taxed at the rate to be able to allow that to happen.
I disagree with that, Scott. I don't think they're being taxed at the ability to build 4 homes.
No, but the land has more value. The land value is higher according to the assessors in this town. When I was in front of them, the land has more value because there's more flexibility on what you can do with the lot compared to the lots around them. You see what I'm saying? Because the lot at the top of the street, Larry Prince's old lot, only has the frontage. It really only has very little frontage on Highland and a little on Linden, but it's the same size lot. But because it does not have the road frontage, you couldn't even subdivide it if they wanted to. Where she has both options, not only to build, but to also subdivide too. So
I don't have the accessory dwelling unit that we passed that allows detached buildings.
Yep. That does not, that's an exception to this. ADUs are an exception. Because detached ADUs need a special exception right now.
All right, since this is causing so much controversy, do we want to move ahead with this? Planning board members? Comments?
Are we able to make a motion to not accept that one, or?
We can decide that we don't want it to move ahead. How do people feel about that? I mean, the case that John brought up, it's really a moot point because it doesn't change where he lives. It doesn't do anything to change that.
No, I think it's a lot of controversy here. Either we can talk about it more in the future, or we can take it off the board for now and talk about it later.
Is there any way to reword it so it's made clearer?
Even if you make it clearer, there's only a few places in those areas that you could do that anyway. And I hate to deprive anybody of the use of their land and property. They're taxed on that land just like they could build something if they wanted to. The assessors have proven that time and again. So I would not be in favor of going through the forward with this right now.
I second that as well.
Would you like to put that in a motion, one of you?
So moved.
I make a motion to not accept the, what's the right terminology?
To not move forward with amendment number 1.
I make a motion to not move forward with amendment number 1.
Is there a
Jessamine,
second?
second.
All in favor?
Frederick Senna, aye.
Alden, aye.
Jessamine, aye.
Judy?
Odell, aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Okay. All right. All right, so we'll remove that from the list. Moving on to
Jane,
yes.
when you can't hear Christine, check the chat box. She's putting her vote in there.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Shall the town adopt amendment number 2 as proposed by the Tilton Planning Board by amending the Tilton zoning ordinance, Article 7, Appendix C, Table of Dimension Values, to strike out accessory building may not occupy more than 10% of the area required for the side or rear setback and are not permitted in front setbacks, and replace that with on any lot an accessory building greater than 200 square feet may be erected and maintained only with building setbacks in accordance with the requirements of this item. An accessory use structure less than 200 square feet and no higher than 17 feet may not be constructed within 10 feet of the property line nor between a line drawn parallel to the street and passing through the closest front edge of the primary building. Now, Leanne, would you like to put that in English? Can't hear you, Leanne.
Yeah. So right now you're using a percentage of a setback for your accessory buildings like a shed. This would say that if it's a shed 200 square feet or larger, you would have to be in the full setback. So if it's a 20-foot setback, you couldn't be in the setback. And if it's less than 200 square feet, then you would have to be 10 feet from the setback. So it's 10 feet for anything less than 200 square feet as an accessory building. And anything that's bigger than 200 square feet must meet the current setback in that district.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
The reason for that is?
It's just, I think it's clearer than using the percentage of the setback and how is that calculated. And it prevents really large buildings from being encroaching in the setback for the neighbors where, you know, you can put a little shed within the setback up to 10 feet, but I think it's pretty intrusive when you have anything over 200 square feet that's encroaching on your setback. Again, anyone can go to the zoning board to get relief from that, but it's pretty straightforward. It's 10 feet under 200 square feet and outside the setback over 200. So agricultural is 40. I mean, it depends what the district, but it would just follow along. It might make it will make it easier for the code enforcement to follow as far as when submittal of these sheds. Mostly sheds is what comes up as accessory dwellings.
Okay, so it's different in each zone.
The setback is different in each zone, but it would be the same in every zone, that if you were smaller than 200 square feet, it would be a 10-foot setback.
Okay.
But the 200 square feet would be whatever the setback of that zone is.
Okay, thanks.
So would garages be considered an accessory dwelling if they're not attached?
A garage is considered an accessory dwelling, yep, if it's not attached. And should meet the setback if it's bigger than 200 square feet.
I was asking because, like, on, for example, my property is pre-existing and it's pretty close to the setback. I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
again, I would be grandfathered. Any zoning change is always as of the date of the amendment, and nothing would have to be changed. But again, it's to protect encroachment and.
Any comments from the public? Planning board?
Hey, Jane? Madam Chair?
Yes, John.
So, as we know, in my area of the town, people are on top of each other here. My neighbor wanted to, was talking about building a bigger garage and a shed for many years, talking about that. And I said, yeah, I don't see a problem with it. I said, if he went in there for the zoning board or whatever, that I wouldn't object to it. So something like that, they could still just bring it for a special exception or a variance.
It would be a variance, and absolutely, they would probably have to do that even with the current ordinance, it sounds
Yeah.
like. So, depending on how much they were going to encroach.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion that we move this amendment onto the warrant.
I second it. All in favor? Alden, yes?
Then a yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Odell, yes.
Tilton, yes.
Okay. Moving right along. Amendment 3 is, shall the town adopt amendment number 3 as proposed by the Tilton Planning Board by amending the Tilton zoning ordinance, Article 10, Section 8, accessory dwelling unit as follows. The accessory dwelling unit shall comprise no more than 35% or 750 square feet, whichever is greater, of the living space of the entire primary structure, not including the ADU. Public have any comments? All we did was we changed floor area to living space and took out structure. I'm sorry, what?
Primary structure.
Primary structure, not including the ADU, accessory dwelling unit.
So do you want me to explain just what that clarifies?
Yes, if you would like.
So right now with the way the ordinance is written, when the building department gets a permit for an accessory dwelling unit, it has to determine what 35% is based on something. So if you have a house that's 1,000 square feet, you would say, well, that's 35% would be lower, so it'd be 750. But what is the floor space? Do you include the basement? Do you include the front porch? Do you include a barn in the back? So it just is floor space, not living space. So one could argue that you should count all the space, a patio, a deck, a floor, a porch, So this says no. And I think that was the intent of the ordinance, or the spirit of the ordinance, as far as I could tell. So it's now of the living space of the primary structure. So not including the ADU, because otherwise you can build a huge ADU in order to use that square footage to determine the square footage of the ADU. Obviously, you don't include what you're proposing to build. So it's been argued many ways. So that is how the building inspector and I felt that it should be worded for clarification on determining what are the size restrictions. Because it's supposed to be subordinate to the primary structure. So that's where that comes into that 35% or 750 maximum.
All right. Any comments from the public? John?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Yes. John had his hand up, Joe.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, so yeah, it seems to straighten out some issues on it. However, I'm worried about the definition of living space. Is that currently defined in our definitions and standards?
That's a good point, John. Let me look, and if not, maybe we should add that.
Add that. That's what I'm thinking, and while you're looking, and I guess it's, somebody might say, well, I got a hammock out on the porch, so that's my living space, or, I've got a gazebo on the
Well,
patio.
John, you're not taxed that way either. So if you want to call that living space, you're going to get taxed as living space. So
you can have a hot tub under a canopy too.
Oh, shh! Don't tell everybody. I'll get taxed.
living space is not defined, but neither was floor space. So if the planning board wants to add that as a definition, we can add that in for the Second Amendment. I don't know, living space is we'll have to get the definition out of the assessor's book, I guess.
I was just thinking it would.
You don't live in your garage.
Yeah, it might save you from some arguments.
Yeah, true. Good point, John.
I think it's a good point.
What happens in the terms if you have like living space in the garage, they converted it into a living space, or the basement is converted into living space?
Then it's living space.
Okay.
All right.
But your barn is not living space, and your garage is not living space. It's not living space. I think, yeah. Clear minds, know what living space is.
But. Joe, you had a comment? Joe?
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to move this to the warrant with the addition of the definition.
I'll second that. All in favor? Alden, yes?
Jessamine,
Odell,
yes.
Then yes.
Judy?
Tilton, yes.
Okay. All right. Then that is it, and we will have to have a second hearing. When will that be, Leanne?
The 26th. It has to be the 26th because they have to be to the clerk by I believe, the 1st of February.
Okay. So put that on your calendar, guys.
It'll be a regular meeting on the 26th.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. We have, let me get down. Someplace I have another sheet. Bear with me.
The next two things were just under other business, and one was 100 Autumn Drive, and the other was White Rock under other business.
Oh, okay. I don't know where my sheet of paper is. I've got so many sheets of paper. Okay. The next thing, Judy had wanted to bring up Autumn Drive, and I don't believe that they've had a zoning hearing, and that zoning hearing is until the 19th. Is that correct, Leanne?
There is an agenda item on the zoning board to hear an appeal to the zoning board on 100 Autumn Drive as to whether it is an expansion of use.
So should we put this off until after the zoning board meets? Judy, you were the one that,
Now, the purpose of this was, when we were discussing it last meeting, everybody's not up to speed on how they came about all of this happening.
Mhm.
And she said even some of the selectmen weren't up to speed on what's going on. So this was to clarify to everybody at the same time, what's happening there? How did they come about all of this?
Do you want me to Judy, you looking for me to make a review how this started? Is that what you're looking for?
That's what we discussed last meeting, if that's
Right.
what you would do.
Right. So, the owners of 100 Autumn Drive presented the building department with a building permit to add a couple bathrooms and to expand the number of beds from 9 to 30 in their building. It was the determination was that this was not an expansion of use, since it was an allowed use. How was it worded? It was an allowed use when it was developed, and you cannot restrict growth of an allowed business of a normal expansion. That was the position of the land use department, to not deny the building permit on a non-conforming use. So when this was approved, after this business was approved, zoning amendment put forth to not allow such businesses in that district. Again, like we talked earlier, this business was grandfathered. You would then assume that this makes this a non-conforming because the ordinance changed the use after it was there, so it became a non-conforming use. However, there's legislation that allows businesses to continue to grow and expand even within a non-conforming use and not considered an expansion because that's a normal business practice. So we did not deny the building permit based on non-conformity or an expansion because they weren't adding any buildings, they were just adding rooms internally. So that's the zoning side of it. That decision is being appealed, and that is allowed, and it will be heard by the zoning board, and they will rule on the 19th whether that decision to not require them to go to zoning for a non-conforming use will be upheld. That'll be on the 19th. That brings us to the planning board. The planning board site plan does say 9, I believe, bedrooms or rooms. I'm not sure how it states exactly, so correct me if I'm wrong. And it says any expansion will need a site plan approval. So if the board wants to see a new site plan from this applicant, they are certainly within their purview to request that. However, I guess the word expansion is the issue of whether this is truly an expansion. There's no growth on the lot. There's no changes to the building except internally, and there were no issues. So if they were, I guess I'll just add before I close and let you discuss. If the board does determine that they want to see a site plan for this property based on their conditions of approval, then I just would like some clarification on what that site plan would look like, because I think it would look exactly like the existing site plan with the exception of the number of rooms. I mean, there's no change to the site. So I would want to know what you would want to see on a quote new site plan, because physically there's no changes to the exterior. The parking is existing and there's plenty of parking, which was determined. The only other thing they do need as a condition is they do need to bring in public sewer, which was a condition of approval. They have septic right now, and in order to expand, and that's what's holding up the building permit right now, is they still must gain public sewer before they can expand the number of bedrooms. So, because their septic is not large enough. And they are pursuing that now. So I know Mr. Mead is in a butter, and he is opposed to this growth. And so I think that's all the history. If anyone has any questions about how this all came about, I can answer that. Otherwise, I'll let the board discuss and move forward as however they wish.
Okay.
So why are they going, were they denied something? Why are they going in front of ZB?
Because it's an appeal. So they were allowed, they're appealing the decision. So initially, the applicant was initially denied the building permit for non-conforming use, right? Which would be your normal thought process because it's non-conforming. And then upon our attorney's opinion and his legal opinion on the expansion, on the new legislation, that we reversed that decision to deny the building permit based on expansion and allow them to move forward with a building permit. So that decision is being appealed to the zoning board. So it's an appeal of administrative decision. They're appealing a decision by the staff, which isn't allowed, which is what is part of the process. Which is kind of a little bit separate, I believe, as Mr. Mead's argument is separate from the planning board. That's a zoning issue where we're not making them go for variance, and the abutter has a right to appeal that decision as an appeal of administrative decision.
So who canceled the meeting?
We didn't cancel the meeting. No meeting was canceled. There was a zoning board meeting. The applicant withdrew their application once we reversed our decision to deny them. So if you applied for a building permit and we denied it, and then we went back and said, Judy, we're going to approve that building permit, well, then you would withdraw your application to the zoning to appeal that decision. And that's really what happened. So we denied the building permit. The applicant appealed that denial to the zoning board, which you have the right to do. We reversed our decision and said, we were wrong. We should not have denied it based on advice from counsel. And so you don't need to go to the zoning board because I haven't denied you anything, so there's nothing to appeal. So then you withdraw your application just like anyone would withdraw an application from zoning if they changed their mind. So they withdrew their application. The board still met, just the application didn't move forward because the applicant had nothing to appeal. Now the abutter has the same right to appeal a decision, and they're appealing the opposite decision. So they're appealing the decision to allow it at the zoning level. Is that clear, Judy?
It is. I'm just curious why no boards were involved in that decision.
Because
it sounds like it was done by you on the advice of the attorney.
Right, but it never was a board decision to allow it. It was a department decision to allow it. So it was a department decision to change their decision. You follow? They weren't going for a variance and then I reversed a variance. It was a department decision to disallow something and then a change in decision by the department. Two parties obviously are sitting on both sides, and whoever is in disagreement is going to appeal that decision.
Okay, Judy, are you satisfied? Okay.
I'm still rather confused how this came about, but I'm sure it's not the end of it.
Is the public invited to comment, or is the board still in discussion?
Well, I think that one of the things the board has to decide is whether we want to discuss it tonight or wait till after the zoning board rules, because that will make a difference. How does the planning board feel about that?
I agree.
The difficulty I'm having with this whole thing is we represent the voters of our town, and our voters were very clear about that property. And I'm not even sure how we got to this point again with that property.
The voters voted on that particular property, Judy? I'm not familiar with that. Can you just tell me? Because I wasn't here when that happened.
They voted to change the zoning so that there would be no further use of that property or any that type in that zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's, well, I'm going to reserve my opinion on that, whether that is even allowed, but that's kind of spot zoning. But anyway, I'll allow that to go with, again, I wasn't here when it passed and I don't have any skin in this game. I'm just following the advice of our town attorney. So the zoning board will hear it though, if anyone wants to attend on the 19th. I just don't think we can allow a business and then say, well, we really didn't want it, so now we're going to change the rules and not allow it, even though it was allowed before. But I agree. That's why we approved it. We hadn't go to zoning to begin with, so we thought it was a non-conforming, but we were wrong. So.
Okay. How does the planning board feel? Do you feel that we should wait for discussion after the zoning board rules? There might not even be any discussion depending on how the zoning board rules.
Exactly. I think we should wait until after the zoning board because we have really nothing to discuss in that regard until after the zoning board meets.
I agree. I've been a little bit out of the loop. I understand this issue, but I'd have to wait.
Okay. I feel that we should wait.
At this point, I don't think we have much of a choice. We have to wait.
I think the minimum, we should allow the public to speak.
I'm going to let him. He spoke at the last meeting when we met and discussed it, but I'm going to allow him to speak, but I don't think that we should go any further until after the zoning board meets. And I will put that in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jessamine second.
All in favor? Alden? Yes.
Anna, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Odell, yes.
Judy?
I'm not voting. I have too many questions.
Okay.
Christine online. Yes. I'm sorry, Christine voted yes on the chat.
Yes. Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Mead, would you like to say something?
Yes. Two issues. The first, regardless of what the zoning board does next week with regard to the non-conforming use question, I would remind the board that its condition on approving the 100 Autumn Drive project says, and I quote, any future change of use or expansion of use shall require site plan approval from the Tilton Planning Board. This language shall appear as a note on the plan. So that condition was made part of the approval of this project prior to any zoning questions being part of the issue. So no matter what the zoning board does as regards the non-conforming use, that condition still exists. So remember, the key phrase there was expansion of use. I'll now read from the letter that the Tilton Land Use Office sent to the applicant for the building permit, which states as follows: upon further review and given that the building permit in this instance is proposing no physical expansion of the buildings where the residential adult recovery center now I emphasize this next phrase, where the residential adult recovery center expansion of use is to take place, and there is sufficient on-site parking to accommodate this proposed expanded use from 9 to 30 beds. The permit will not be denied due to a non-conforming use. So twice in the letter to the applicant, their proposal is described as an expansion of use. The precise language that the planning board used as a condition for requiring a new site plan to be presented for discussion by the planning board. So I want to put that out there. It's very clear and separate from what the planning board does next week. The second question I would like to pose before the board that I've asked it several times. Another condition for the project that was stated, it's condition number 11, was the condition of background checks for both staff and clients of this facility. I've asked a couple of times whether or not those background checks have in fact been done, because that provision says that the chief of police must have access, A, that those background checks need to be done, and B, they have to be available to the Tilton chief of police. And I am just curious how the board has followed through in terms of enforcing that particular condition which it placed on this project.
Leanne, I think you spoke with Chief Cormier.
I did. After that was raised last time, I reached out to the chief, and he stated he was unaware of this condition, and he was going to speak with his captain, and they were going to check to see if it was legal for them to access those records, I think due to, confidentiality for medical reasons. And I have not heard back since.
Would you follow up on that, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question too, Madam Chair, if you have a.
Yes, Fred.
In regards to the expansion of use, it seems like there's two different definitions of expansion of use that Ms. Inby brings up, and that's one thing I think where he's getting confused from is the expansion of use of the beds and the expansion of use of the actual property, the building, which would require a new site plan. Maybe we should clarify that a little bit more.
Okay, and I will add the fact that to me, what the planning board meant was expansion of use was they wouldn't do medical exams there, they wouldn't give shots to people. That was the kind of expansion of use because it was talked about whether they would have doctors, physicians there. That was a possibility, and which would change the whole use of the facility. And that was the kind of expansion of use that I think of when I think of expansion of use. I don't think in terms of expanding the number of beds you have. And I'll give you an example. I wouldn't want somebody to come into my house and say, I want you to do a site plan because you have a new roommate, and you put a door between two rooms in your house. I mean, to me, that's an invasion of privacy, and it's not an expansion of the use of the facility. It's simply adding a greater number of beds, and to me, that's how I look at expansion.
Jane, you're not a business. This is a business. And as a board, we discussed the number of beds as an expansion. And that was part of what went to Superior Court.
Okay. I don't have that case. I'll look that up. But I thought when we talked about expansion of use, we talked about things like doctors would not be there doing physical exams or doing testings. That's what I thought. but we can check that
No, we
out.
specifically said beds. So research that.
Okay.
I should go look at the court reading.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Mead? Those two things?
Well, there are lots of things, but I think I probably will wait until there's further discussion by the board. I mean,
Is that building occupied now?
I think that's a question that the board should look into, whether or not, in fact, that is an ongoing business, or whether this is, in fact, basically coming back and wanting to start a larger scale business where one has not actually begun yet.
Well, you're the neighbor. That's why I was asking you, is the business ongoing now?
I have not seen very much evidence other than the occasional car parked in the parking lot.
Okay.
That would indicate that it's actually being used.
Okay.
One other comment I would make with regard to the site plan, there was a great deal of discussion during the original hearings on this project by the board, seemed to be considerable concern by the board about how this facility would in fact be operated. Discussions of staffing ratios, kitchen facilities, and the like. It seems to me that going from 9 beds to 30 beds would prompt the same sort of discussion. I'm very curious as to whether or not this facility, and I don't know or not, whether this facility requires a license under Title 11 of the Hospitals and Sanitaria, Chapter 151, Residential Care and Health Facilities Licensing statutes of the state. As I read those things, I would think it would need a license. If it doesn't need a license, then I think the town of Tilton and the planning board has a lot of responsibility in terms of how that facility is in fact managed. And when you go from 9 beds to 30 beds, it seems to me that responsibility also triples.
Well, I think that responsibility is up to the state. All we can do is check with the state on licensing, so we don't go in and see how people are managing their businesses.
And if the state does not require this facility to be licensed, is the town of Tilton indifferent?
No, I didn't say that. I just said that would be up to the state to see if that were the case. And I did check with the police, and I know that the reason I asked you if it was occupied was because they've gotten no calls whatsoever about any problems in it. So that's why I wanted to see if you knew if anybody was there now.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, it's being, if used at all, it's at a minimum.
Okay. And you don't know what it's even being used for?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's wait and see what the zoning board says, and then we will address some of these issues, Mr. Mead, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. The next issue is the solar. I can't call it a solar farm. The solar establishment at White Rock. When that came up before, we were very clear about the kinds of plantings we wanted to have, and I've been out there. I took pictures. I know John Scanlon was out there, and what has been planted is not at all what we had talked about or what we had envisioned. And excuse me. As a matter of fact, when I was there the last time, it was before the first snowfall. The plants had all died, so they weren't even the types of plants that would have served as any screening in the wintertime to begin with. According to the excuse me, according to the company that came to see us, they couldn't put anything up higher because of the state not allowing them to interface with the road. It was too close to the road. I'm not sure that's the case. I think if they planted it down just a little ways, but I'm not a nurseryman or anything like that. But I do know that what they have now is not what we had asked to have planted. We had specifically talked about arborvitae, which is a very quick growing plant. I think if you drive down the road just a few feet to Gaslight, they have planted arborvitae there. They've been planted, I think, for a year, and they're already far taller than I am. So I don't think right now is the time to act on that. I think we should wait till the spring, revisit it with the company, and see if we can make some changes to the plantings that are there. How does the rest of the board feel, Fred?
Madam Chair, I had a question.
Yeah.
In regards to because I read the email response, and they said that they had confirmation from DOT not allowing the arborvitaes being a single trunk, but the trees that they have there now are single trunks. And my question is, do they have like proof that they had that from DOT?
No, we don't know that.
Because it seems either with the plants that they have now are the same situation as the arborvitaes would have been. I went over the details of the trees and whatnot,
Right.
and both have multi trunks. Multiple branches off of them, and they're non-invasive root structures. Was what they said the DOT was concerned with. Arborvitaes don't really have a invasive root structure.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Same thing with the other ones. But with the plantings that they did plant, they're not nearly as clean as the arborvitaes would have been.
No, and they don't grow as tall either.
Exactly.
And they die down in the winter.
Yep.
Arborvitae does not. And they don't spread out the way arborvitae does, which really makes an edge.
Exactly.
Does everybody think it's a good idea to wait till the spring to bring them back so we can have the discussion? I mean, there's nothing they can do at this point in time. The ground is pretty well frozen. They couldn't plant anything. Pardon?
I'm sorry.
I agree. I would say that it's not accurate for us to judge it at this point. And we'll see if they replant in the spring or, yeah, I agree. Springtime is a better evaluation time.
If you come back at that property, if you come back just a few inches from the road, there's a drop. But with an arborvitae, you could still plant within that drop, that ditch type area, and they would grow up taller than that in no time, and would still make a screen. But as it is right now, it's not very attractive, and it's not a nice thing to have to look at as you drive by.
Yeah. Is it wrong to bring them in and just get a feel for what they're thinking, so that way they're already pre-planned for springtime? Because if we bring them in the spring, they're going to plant in the summer. It'll take longer for the trees to take.
Well, I thought that if they brought them in the spring, they could get them planted. I mean, it's not something that going to buy arborvitae isn't something that's going to take a lot of planting, because any nursery or even Home Depot or Lowe's have plenty of arborvitae in the spring.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be a problem. I don't think they have to do a lot of planting to do it. You buy them and you dig a hole and put them in. That's what they did with the others.
But I mean, depends on how long they try to drag it out for too.
Yeah. Well, I think that we need to have it enforced before the end of next summer, for sure. How do other people feel? Judy?
Okay, the email from Revision Energy is asking that the permit be closed out, and, what do they have to do to make that happen? So I think that correspondence with them should reflect that, no, we are not going to close out the permit at
I think, didn't you talk
At
with them
this
about
time,
that, Leanne?
plantings, because we still have concern.
My last communication with this applicant was in regard to the plantings, and I had questioned why they hadn't planted the arborvitaes, and that was the response that I think I forwarded to the board of the DOT, and that's the last communication I've had with the applicant.
Okay, then your point's well taken, Judy. I thought that Leanne had gotten back in touch with them. Leanne, can you draft a letter, please, to send to them saying that we are not satisfied with the plantings and we can schedule them to come in and we can talk with them if they would prefer that. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so I'm going to draft a letter on the planning board's behalf and signed by the chair. Is that what you're looking for?
Is that okay with everybody else?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
I think that's appropriate. And if they would like to come in and talk with us, they are we're more than willing to talk with them. But I think we made it very clear in our meetings with them, and I've gone back and read those minutes. We made it very clear that they needed to hide the structure so that it couldn't be seen from Route 3 in particular. I'm going to open it up to the public, John.
Yeah, thanks, folks, for this is a tricky one. That's why I was hoping we'll get a solar ordinance will help out with this stuff on it. But I went back and listened to the recording, and at 4314, James Hasselback, the design engineer, said he was open to providing the screening array, and if it was the desire of the town, he's happy to add the plantings and meet the goals of the master plan, as well as, and I could go on and on. They did definitely agree to it, and that was made as a motion, and even Judy even asked or Eric asked for it on the eastern entrance. I did notice, and I did a little bit of research. I couldn't get the plans out, but it appears that from the center line of the road, it's 22 feet is the right of way. They have about, I think it was like 48 or 54 feet before they're there. So if you take, they still have like 25 feet that they could put these plants in. I saw the email that was sent to you saying that with an invoice for some plants that were planted. I checked; those are not perennials. I mean, what am I thinking? Evergreens. So they do die off every year and fall back. So they would never actually purpose as that. And on top of that, the invoice they submitted, if you look at the type of plant and the tag on the ones that were planted, they're two different plants. So I think they're thinking they can, just, walk off, and I also looked into some more stuff, and they were supposed to have a fence around the transformer too. I
That's
have to
correct.
check into that, yeah. And I didn't see a fence around the transformer. So, and I feel bad for White Rock. It's like, a hit and run, we're getting your power. And it's
Well,
just sad.
that's why I was glad to see an ordinance come up because I think we're going to have more situations like that in the future.
Hmm.
When I went out there, I think there were only 6 plants, which is certainly not sufficient to cover the area that we asked them to cover.
Yeah, and they were like clumps of grass, and certainly not
I
evergreen.
thought they were weeds. I didn't, I thought they were weeds and that animals had dug around and got little rocks around the topsoil. That's what I thought. That's what it looked like. They were in such bad shape.
And as Frederick was saying about the plants and the trunk, those are not like single stump things. So there are already trees there. But there's also other plants that they could also compromise with. Even like a rhododendron holds its leaves for a good part of the year, and that would help, and it would look beautiful. And they're cheap. So
But they're not real fast growing.
yeah, and so if there's lots of options they could have, and I think you guys are doing the right thing, letting them know ahead of time we're not happy, and thanks for dealing with this. I think everybody will be happy if it's at least some kind of green stuff to make it look nice.
Yep.
But thank you.
Anything else to come before the board? Oh, do we have minutes?
Yeah.
I have to look at my agenda that I can't find.
Yeah, you should have minutes.
Yeah, I have them. They're
Okay, I know I read minutes. That's what made me think of it. Everybody have an opportunity to read the minutes.
yes.
Any corrections, comments? Judy?
Under attendance, it says Planning Board of Adjustment members.
Okay.
It just looks like like we do. You use the same template for various organizations, so some
Okay.
there. And on page 3, near the bottom, we have Selectman Scanlon commented. He's not a selectman if he's not at a selectman's meeting, and it's not an official meeting. He comes to these meetings as a citizen. So we don't want anyone to be reading our minutes later and think that he's acting on behalf of the select board.
Yeah. Thanks.
Is that accurate, John?
Yeah, I try and always say I'm John from Main Street. The other hat.
The dwelling expert. Sorry. You'll never live that down, Joe. All right. Would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Frederickson, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections that were noted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Tilton, yes.
I abstain. I was not there.
I abstain. I was not there. Todd, were you not there either?
That's what I just said. I said I abstained.
Okay, all right. Do we have anybody else who was there?
I don't think anybody else was there.
I don't think anybody else was there. We can't. But I can't. Okay. All right. Is there anything else to bring before the planning board? Motion to adjourn.
10 seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All in.
Hi, Tilton.
Thank you.
Aye, Odell.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yep. You too.